And I'm so excited to be joined today by Noémi, and I'm going to have her introduce herself and tell you her passion. But before I do, I want to tell you that she's actually joining us all the way, if you are in the US or not, all the way from the Mediterranean Sea of Cyprus. So I am super honored and I'm super blessed that she is spending her evening at 7 p.m. her time with us today to share her passion. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me today, Dr. Gina. It's an honor. I just love your podcast.
Aw, thank you so much. So, why don't you introduce yourself and tell everyone what you're passionate about?
So, I'm Noemi and I live in Cyprus in Europe, as you mentioned, in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. And
Yeah.
I was born and raised in Hungary in Central Europe.
Oh.
And I ended up here 13 years ago. And I'm really passionate about connecting people and helping to share their story and share their knowledge and enriching their lives through connections. So basically, that's
Ah.
my passion in life. And the other passion I got is to express myself, being an artist, and also to help people to cope with stress, anxiety, trauma, grief. But that's the other side of me. So
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's so interesting. So you talk about art and so for our company we give out coloring books and the interesting thing is people ask and they'll ask our sales folks like, "Gina, do you train kids?" And it's like, "No, we work with truck drivers and we work with fleets." And they're like, "Well, why are you coloring?" And it's like being a learning scientist and you know this, you just mentioned it, art, music, coloring, it actually puts you into a meditative state of breathing that actually opens up the oxygen in your neural pathways to help you relax and to help you feel better. So that's why we color. It's not just for kids, right? It's
no,
not.
definitely not. There's so many things that you can do and you don't have to be to be an artist to do that. Definitely not.
No, absolutely. So, with your passions, and I know that you love sharing stories and connecting people, stories are the pathway, right, to new beginnings and new learnings. Has there ever been a time that maybe there was a hurdle or a roadblock in your way that really kept you from moving towards your passion?
Yeah, absolutely. Like everyone else in the world, I guess, like this is a great question because we all have these hurdles in life. For me, it was 2019 when my
Mm.
my dad passed away because of cancer, and I lost my grandmother to an accident. And it was a horrible time to to cope with grief, and then the pandemic hit, which also meant that our previous business, an online travel related business, just went up in the smoke basically from one day to
Wow.
another because it was travel related. So it was a horrible time for me, and I had a lot of hurdles. And coping with grief, it
Mm.
was hard, and just losing your business and start everything from scratch basically in
Wow.
March, April 2020, like so many other people in the world. Yeah, these were definitely the hurdles that I was struggling with, and I had to cope with it.
It is like undescribable and you can't even relate to it if you haven't gone through that, which is the death of a parent. And I really feel that, that plus anything else really takes a lot of willpower and grit to get through because until you experience that and go through it, it just weighs on every inch of your cells and soul. So, wow, I mean that, and I can't even imagine like losing a business on top of that. It's like horrifying and depressing and really all of those things. So what inspired you? I mean, what was it in those moments of darkness and like complete despair? What was it or what inspired you to move forward and how did you move forward?
I was an only child. I'm an only child, so I had no brothers or sisters, and my only like living relative on this planet, like very close relative, is my mom, and she was always
Mm.
my rock. And I knew that I need to support her, and also my son, who was like 7 back then. And yeah, so I knew that I have a purpose. I have a purpose to
Mm.
help and support them, and just to exist and start something from scratch. And I'm the kind of person who has the personality, I never really give up anything. So I just keep going and doing things. And I knew that I can't give up. And that's my motto in life: just keep going. Whatever happens, just keep going. And even if you take smaller steps, you will get there. But you need to
Mm.
keep going, even in your deepest, darkest hour. Plus, for me, art really helped to cope with grief
Mm.
and with trauma. And so I just started to make again collages, and that
Wow.
was my kind of specialty. Every evening I was in my bedroom, I put on my headphones, listening to audiobooks, podcasts, music, you name it, and I was just working on these collages, and they really helped to heal me.
Wow, that's so beautiful. Naomi, you said two things in there that I think are really important to hear. You found you had a purpose, and you have to find that purpose. And then you used a strategy to help you cope, because the pain is real, and it's not that you should ignore the pain. You have to feel it and you have to experience it so that you can build the resilience and willpower to cope. So I love that you do collages. Do you have any to show us, or are I putting you on the
Yeah,
spot? Yeah.
you can see them
On the
behind me on
back.
the wall.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
It's kind of my
Let's,
little mini exhibition there. And yeah, I
oh,
love, I love doing them. And, it's kind of my passion project for sure. I had a couple of, before the pandemic, I had a few group exhibitions, installations. I
wow.
attended some artist workshops in different places in Europe, and it was an amazing time. But then again, pandemic hit and everything stopped that was art
Wow.
related too. So
Yeah. The thing is, like you mentioned, you were in your bedroom, with a headset on, and it's important for people to hear you say that you got out. You got out, you were in your bedroom, but you got out and you connected with others, with your art and sharing your art, because it's so powerful for neural connections and to create dopamine to make you feel better. So I
yes.
love that. So what keeps you happy today? Like moving towards your passion now, that you've moved forward, and you have your business that you're working towards. What keeps you happy and inspired every day?
I have so many things that inspire me and keep me
Aw.
happy. I mean, first of all, I love working with my clients, and they are amazing people. And I couldn't wish better people to work with. So it's nice to get up every morning with the feeling that I can work with them, I can serve them, I can
Mm.
help them today. The other thing is, obviously, when you're raising a child, raising your son, and he's becoming a teenager, pre-teenager, it's just amazing to see all those changes. Not always amazing, sometimes it's not, but it's so much fun to see this little baby growing up and becoming a man. And that definitely keeps me going, keeps me happy and inspired every day. And it's because I'm an artist. So this is, left
Yeah.
brain, right brain, it always works for me. And I love creating
Mm.
since I was a kid. I love like drumming. I have a frame drum, I have a tongue drum, I have a hand pan. So I love making music, I love making art, and that really keeps me inspired. And I'm also an avid walker. I love
Oh,
walking every afternoon, every evening, and I just did it today as well before I got on the call. And it really inspires me. And I take photos. I love taking photos, and I love being in nature and connecting with nature. So I think if we find all these small things in life that keeps us happy, we can be happy anywhere, anytime.
mm. That's so beautiful. I'm writing a book, and you mentioned like four things of strategies that are in my book, and the whole idea of nature. I did a lot of research on how nature really does help us actually build immunity, in creating these types of cells that ward off different diseases and being in the trees. So there is something about cognitively, chemically, that happens to us when we're in nature, and I love that example. And creativity is so grounded in neuroscience, and just being creative and thinking outside the box, is so important for neuroplasticity and continuing to grow and learn. So I really can appreciate that. That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Was it something that you learned? Is this something like there was something that you learned along the way that had this big impact on you to like think the way that you do? Or is this, like you said, you've just always been creative and just kind of who you are?
The artist part is definitely, it's with me, it's within me since I was
Mhm.
growing up, since I was a little girl. And, I that started with belly dancing
Aw.
to everything. So I just like, jewelry making, painting, drawing. So it really, really inspired me. And growing up as an only child, yeah, it has its, advantages, disadvantages. You have to keep yourself occupied all the time
Yeah.
because I did no brothers or sisters. So I mean, that's
Yeah.
definitely helped me to get through. And sorry, what was the question again? The second part, because I had
Yeah,
something in
no,
mind.
no, like something that you learned that really made an impact on your thinking of like who you are today.
Yeah, I read a lot and I'm a bookworm
Mhm.
for sure. So I read or I listen to audiobooks. And I would say, like, kind of studying positive psychology, art therapy really helped me to see,
Mhm.
the bright side of life or the positive things in life and keep focused on those, because just so, so important. And really helped me to open my eyes. And I wasn't always such a positive person. And I remember I had a colleague back in Ireland, because I lived in Ireland for 7 years, and he was a dear friend of mine, and he was much older than me. He could be my grandpa. And he told me once, because I always complained about things, and he told me, so
Yeah.
why do you do that? And it was just so honest with me.
Uh-huh.
And that conversation with him, I mean, that was only not just a question, but followed with a longer
Yeah.
conversation with him, really opened my eyes. Like, why am I like this? Why am I not happy, or why am I not satisfied in my 20s? It shouldn't be like this. And then I switched, I left my job, and I became an entrepreneur. So
Ah, I like that though. It is something to think about. If you're sitting there grumpy, it's like, why are you grumpy? Why are you coming to the
yeah.
call? Why are you coming and showing up grumpy? It's like, there's a definite switch that can happen that you can make happen and choose to make happen to be brighter. So I love that art does that for you and that you choose that for yourself. And this season, Naomi, one thing I really wanted to focus on my podcast is what is winning. I really have reflected a lot about what winning means. And I like asking my guests, like, what do they think winning means to them?
That's an yeah, I love this question. And it's so powerful. Winning for me, to be at peace with the world, with myself, and just to be present. Because I think
Mhm.
there's so many people in the world right now, we are just not present. We're always focusing on the past, what happened, and all the trauma we went through, and plus we're always focusing on the future, and all the bad things could happen to us, and they will never will happen, because these are just things that running through our
Mhm.
head and in our mind. So being present, for sure. I mean, that's just winning. It's just so important.
Oh, I mean, that's going to be a great for me to share. That's going to be the title of this podcast, Be Present. In fact, I think I wrote about that on my LinkedIn this week, or even today or this morning. I said, put down your phones and be present. Be present at lunch today. It's lunchtime here. Be present at dinner. We're there
Yeah,
in Cyprus. I look around and it's like everyone's on their phones, and
yeah.
we're letting time fleet by us, and it's like, wow, it's already Thursday, or wow, it's already the end of 2024. It's like, where did the time go? We need to be present, especially if 1 in 4 adults are feeling lonely over the age of 18. We have to be present for each other. It's so critical. I love that that is your theme of winning. That's so awesome. So, what would you do if somebody contacted you after this podcast? This has actually happened to me, and said that they've lost their passion. Like they don't like art. I mean, art like isn't my thing, or I don't have a passion. You even said you had a purpose when you were going through the loss of your parent. Like you found purpose. But what if they don't have a purpose? What would you recommend to them, or what advice would you provide?
I would say take small steps.
Hmm.
And it doesn't matter how small they are, you are still moving toward something, your purpose or your passion. And you
Mm.
may not know it, what it is right now, but you just start doing something, like start drumming or creating art, or something that excites you or lights something up in you. I mean, this is just so important, but only small steps, because that's what I did. And I didn't focus on the future, when I was in my darkest hours, I was just sitting there and concentrating on that particular piece of collage and nothing
Mhm.
else. And sometimes you just do that day by day, and then it will change. But you just
Mhm.
have to keep doing things and repeating things no matter what, and
Mhm.
just small steps, and
Yeah.
just breathe.
Exactly, like, get through the hour. I mean, it's like,
Yes.
get through the day, get through the evening, get through the
Yeah.
afternoon, just do everything you can in small steps because you can't say, like, "I'm gonna go run a marathon," when you're having trouble getting out of bed. I mean, it's just you got
Exactly. So true.
small steps. Great, great advice. So this season, I'm doing something a little unique. I have guests asking guest questions, and on Monday, on Veterans Day, I had Joseph on my podcast, and Joseph wanted to ask you this question. It was we did it for Veterans Day, and he reviewed your profile, and he knows that you are really interested in podcasts. So he wanted to ask, how do you find it most meaningful to develop an aligned communication strategy? So he was really interested in asking you this question. So Joe, if you're listening, here you go.
It's so funny because I knew about the question. Obviously, it didn't come out of the blue for me,
Right.
and we already connected on LinkedIn because
Oh, I
thanked
love
him. I thanked him for
that.
the question because it was a
Yes.
brilliant question. So for
Mhm.
me, it's really when you're connecting people or when you teach people how to connect with the host and with the audience, you have to really craft your message and your story to be authentic. I think
Mm.
that's the connection point, how you really can connect with people, being authentic, being open, being vulnerable. And that's crucial when
Mhm.
it comes to connecting people and getting connected to your audience.
I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know. I think I have a superpower that I can tell when someone isn't truly being authentic. I think that it
Mm,
comes from living a life of authenticity
yeah.
and studying what that means to be authentic. And I think it's just so critical that, people open up and share what they're going through in safe places so that people can have a better understanding and create kindness and love for each other. So I love that is your answer to that question. So thank you so much. It's so beautiful. So
My
next
pleasure.
week I have Brad Arsenin on my podcast and I am super excited. Do you know Brad?
I visited his profile on LinkedIn. I checked it out, and he's amazing what he does. And like, wow, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I read his book. His book is a national bestseller, and it's called Humankind Changing the World One Small Act at a Time. And I read his book and I was in tears because it's the beautiful things that you can do that are so small to change one person's life, and it creates a ripple effect. So he'll be on next week. What question would you like to ask Brad to answer live on my podcast?
I have it. I've written it down because I didn't want to forget it. So yeah, and so I read his profile and what he's doing, visited his website. So my question for Brad is, what drives your passion for helping others?
Oh,
Yeah, I would love to know that.
awesome. Well, we'll see what Brad says. He kind of tells you in his book, but we'll let him answer the question. And thank you so much for that. And Naomi, leave us today on this Thursday of November with some final thoughts, maybe a final message where people can connect and learn more about you. Send us away today on all the love and positivity that you've brought to my show.
They can always visit our website, which is Podcast Connections in plural.co, not com. And you can always find me on LinkedIn. If you type my name in, Noémi Beres, I'm there, and a little microphone sign next to my name. And I'm just happy to connect and chat with anyone. And I'm also on Instagram. Yes, as an artist, that's
Oh,
more from
I
my
need to
art.
find you on Instagram. I'm not connected with you. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's awesome. Leave us with some final thoughts.
Yes, so please, whatever happens in your life, and as I said before, that's my motto, just keep going. And being consistent and persistent, whatever you do, will get you to reach your goals. And I think that this is so important. And I truly believe in taking small steps in whatever I do. And we can predict the future, but if you're taking small steps every day, you will get there. So just
Oh,
keep going, just keep doing the things that you're already doing.
awesome. Thank you so much for coming on my show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Gina. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank